Hello and welcome to the first of two parts of our annual QPR player rating podcasts. This time for 2023-24, I'm joined by Dave and George, who spent the last few weeks working hard on putting their ratings together. We have 25 players to rate, but we're going to go alphabetically with 13 in part one. And then in part two, we'll do the remaining 12 and the two managers as well. The criteria for the players to be included was that they had to have made at least 7 or 8 appearances, which is 15% of the season. So it discounts the likes of Stephen Duke McKenna, Taylor Richards, you'll be glad to hear, Aaron Drew, Joe Gubbins, etc., because it's somewhat unfair to rate them based on so few appearances. Key thing is we started on a 5 out of 10 for each player and worked up or down from there. No half marks. And of course, let us know your thoughts and ratings in the comments. Off we go then, starting with the departing Albert Adomah. George, as it's your player ratings debut, do you want to go first?
Yeah, go on, and I'll start. And I actually went 5 out of 10 on this one. It is quite sad to say because off the pitch, I'll probably say a 9, 10 out of 10. But on the pitch, he just hasn't been good enough, and that's sadly what's been happening in the 4 years that he's been with us. He's been going downhill, and yeah, especially Plymouth away with that own goal. So yeah, he just hasn't done well enough this season, has he?
No, Dave.
Yeah, I feel bad for him. I've given him a 4. I just think he just hasn't had the best of seasons. Probably one season too many for him at this level, and I think he probably admits that as well. Yeah, it's been a shame. I mean, he's done really well. I wish he'd played for us when he was a lot younger, because I think he's been a brilliant player over the years, everywhere he's been, and he's had some great moments with us. But it's good that he got to go on a little bit of a high. He got a great ovation in the Leeds game, and again yesterday. So good luck to him going forward. I think he's done well for us, but not the best season for him.
Yeah, it was nice he got that finale. I've gone with a 4 as well. You said he's been here a year too long. I'd probably say he's maybe been here 2 years too long, if we're being honest. The 2 games he started, we lost. He got no goals, no assists. So we have to take the fact that he's a QPR fan out of the equation. And if it was anyone else, it would be 4 out of 10. So we have to be fair. Next, Lucas Anderson. Dave.
Yeah, I've gone 6 with him, which might be harsh. I think he's done well. He's really impressed since coming in. I love the way he plays with his head up, and he's always looking for a forward pass rather than rushing everything. But he had a little run, I think around March, April, where his form dipped a little bit and he was struggling. He has finished the season well with his set pieces the last few games. But I'll go 6. I think there's a lot more to come from him next season.
Yeah, I've actually gone a little bit higher. I went with a 7 just because I feel like he's improved us so much. And kind of what you're saying there, if he's fit next season and hits the ground running, I think we've got a really special player on our hands at this level. He looks a cut above for me. And you could see how much his goal against Leeds meant to him as well. So hopefully he'll kick on next season. What have you got for Anderson, George?
Well, I went above both of you and I went 8, somewhat potentially optimistic, but I think that he's added a lot to the side. He looks like a great player for the future, and it's not just in open play. His dead balls have been brilliant. His corners have added so much more to the side. Set pieces are actually starting to score a couple now. So I think maybe 8 was a bit over the top, but I think he's been a great signing.
No, I'm sure there's other people out there who give him an 8 as well, because like I said myself, he's improved us so much. Next up is Sinclair Armstrong. I'll go first on this one. I've given him a 6. I think he has come on a lot since last season. He's still young, obviously, and I still think he scares defenders more than our other strikers. Obviously, had his great moment with his winner at Leicester, but to say he's still a rough diamond is putting it kindly, isn't it? Still needs to work on his composure, his positioning, but not a terrible season for him. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I went 6 as well. Similar, I think at his best, he's been really good. And at the start of the season, Cardiff away, he was really good. And then Ipswich at home, he terrorised Ipswich at home, just couldn't get that goal. But quite often, he flatters to deceive a little bit. It should be remembered how young he is. It's only kind of his second full year playing. He's only 20, 21. He's a young kid still. There's a lot more to come from him. And I think it was unfair of us to make him one of our main strikers this year, that we had to rely on him. He needs to develop a little bit out of the spotlight, but he's had a pretty good season. I'd like to have seen a bit more of him, but he's got a few goals and he's definitely caused defensive problems this year.
Yeah, there was a lot of people on our message board said all season long that he should have been out on loan this season, but obviously the position we were in, it wasn't an option. What have you gone for Armstrong, George?
No, I went 6 as well. I think that he's had to learn on the go, isn't he? And I think you hit the nail on the head. The amount of pressure we put on him at the start of the season was really poor, but that was led on from Ainsworth and the recruitment, obviously. But no, he's looked great in points. He scares defenders. His pace is scary, and his strength as well. So he's definitely a good prospect for the future.
On to Asmir Begovic. George, you're back on straight away. You're first for Asmir Begovic.
I went for a generous 7, I think. I think that although he has cost us a few games with a couple of like flaps at the ball, a couple of mistakes, I think that he's made some good saves and he's adapted quite well to playing out from the back, in my opinion. I don't think he's done brilliantly, but I don't think he's done poorly. He's done all right with it. And with someone of his age, I think he's done well with that. He's actually 4th in the league for clean sheets. So I don't think that's that bad. So yeah, I think a 7's a fair opinion.
Do you know, a bit of a difference of opinion here because I've gone with a 5 because I felt I started on a 5. There was some good, some very bad. And it always irked me that he was meant to be the captain and I never got that vibe off him. And sometimes we just don't take to players, do we? And anyone who's watched the preview shows this season knows I'm not a fan. I just find him especially slow off his line. If there's a ball over the top, it always seems to lead to a bit of confusion. And his footwork was poor for so many goals, particularly earlier in the season. The amount of times we feel it saying he should have saved that. We definitely should be parting ways for me. And obviously, George was fine. You've given him a 7. What about you, Dave?
I've gone in the middle. I've gone with a 6. I found him quite a hard one to do because, like, when you look at his numbers, like George says, he's kept quite a few clean sheets this season in a poor side, so that's not bad. And you know, I look back at the recent games, the Preston and the Leeds ones. He did turn up and make some big saves in them games. One against Preston at 0-0. One against Leeds when we were only 1 up. You know, we needed those points at the end of the day, didn't we? We would have gone down without those wins. So I think, you know, that's in his credit. But I do agree with you, James. Some of the goals he conceded early in the season, some of his footwork for some of them was really poor. That what he was doing for that Plymouth goal still annoys me when he went flying out. And, you know, we would have been safe a lot earlier if he hadn't have done that. But, yeah, I'll go with a 6. Probably time to move on in the summer, you know. But he's done okay.
Well, there you go. He gets a 6 on average, and that seems fair enough. Yeah. Reggie Cannon is up next, Dave.
Yeah, it really promised him when he first come in. I've gone with a 5 for him, though, because he's kind of petered out a little bit. I don't know if it's because of injuries and Dunn come in and did so well above him, but you know, there's promise there. I thought he had a decent game against Coventry, but you look at him at times going forward. He's got a lot of promise, but his final ball is quite poor at times. Wonder what it'd be like with a full pre-season. I think he could be someone who develops into a good player for us, but I couldn't go much higher than a 5 for me.
What about you, George?
No, I put him in at a 6. I think he started off the season well, but as Dave said, since Jimmy Dunn's come in, he just hasn't had a look in. I think he did all right against Coventry. I do think he was at fault for that goal, letting that Haji Wright run too far. But I think that I think he's signed a 4-year deal or something. So I think that he's certainly a good bench option or someone to come into the side. He's quick, so I think a 6 was a fair judgment.
I went with a 5, the same as Dave. I was slightly disappointed across the season. I think it's maybe because they build up the signings, don't you? And you're expecting this rapid fullback coming in, taking people on, getting forward. And we never really saw that. Just a steady player. He arrived, though I agree with what Dave said, at an odd time. He was obviously unfit and struggling for probably most of his early appearances. Maybe he could be a different player next season with a good pre-season. But as for this season, he was a 5 for me. On to Ilias Chair, and it's me up first. I went with an 8, and it's kind of similar to what I said last season because he always gives his all. He's pretty much always fit, always available. So as much as some people often criticise the fact that he doesn't maybe provide the right final ball, at least he's there performing for QPR every week. Only missed 2 games again this season, and one of them was because he got 5 yellow cards. I think the rating, I mean, some people might give him 9 or 10, I don't know. But for me, I couldn't go much higher because the first third of the season, he was wasted, wasn't he, with Gareth Ainsworth? The formation, the style of football didn't suit him. But he did well overall with his 15 goal contributions. That's good at this level, probably his best season. And I just love watching him play. But 8 out of 10 seemed fair for me. What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I've gone 7, but I'm faltering now. I'm thinking 8 as well. But I'm going to stick with 7. I think he's had a pretty good season. Like I say, he's always there. He works so hard for the team, even when things aren't coming off for him, he always wants the ball. He just wants to keep going, And, that's not an easy thing to do for a flair player. Sometimes you can kind of hide out the way, but he never does. He always wants the ball. He wants to do everything. He scored some really good goals for us this year. That goal against Coventry was fantastic, and he scored a few others like that. He's frustrating at times. We all know he could release the ball a little bit earlier sometimes, and his set pieces are not the best. But he's had a lot to deal with off the pitch this season, which is probably best not to go into. But that's going to be ongoing, isn't it, during the summer? So it's been a difficult year for him, but I think he's done pretty well for us.
That's actually a really good point to raise, because the way he performed at the end of the season with that pressure on his shoulders was pretty remarkable when you think about it. What have you gone for, George?
Well, no, this one was a tough one for me, but I've actually gone 9 for this. I was thinking 8, but then the thought of when Ilias Chair plays well, we seemingly play well as well. And like when he's having an off game, we usually end up losing. And as you said, Jane, 15 goal contributions this season. You can't really argue with that. And in the league, he has been our top goal. He has been our top goal scorer, despite a third of the season being with Gareth Ainsworth. So I think that 9, you could argue, is a bit optimistic, but I think that he certainly made our top 3 players of the season, and I think that's 9's a fair reflection of where he should be.
Yep, it's absolutely fair what you've said. And it's your player of the season up next, so you can go first. Jake Clark-Salter.
Well, obviously, if I put Chair at 9, I've had to put Clark-Salter at 9 as well. He just looks so good, isn't he? He's just, as I said in the review, he's so calm at the back, great left-footed centre-back, and I think a valuable asset on and off the pitch, and I think he has to be my player of the season and has to get a 9. Not quite a 10, because he did have a couple, I swear he started the season injured, so I think that 9's fair, and I think he'll be another exciting one if we do keep hold of him for next year.
Dave?
Yeah, I went 8. I think he's definitely one of the top 3 players this year. Had a really good season. So good on the ball. It makes a big difference to the way Cifuentes wants to play. But a really good defender as well. Some of his defending has been really good. I thought the Preston game recently was absolutely outstanding in that game. He read everything and really pushed us over the line in that game. He's had a really good season. I think it was a flip of the coin between him and Cook for Player of the Year, and he's done really well. And potentially he could move on in the summer, but if he does end up staying, I think he could be in for a good year next year with us.
Yeah, definitely. I went for an 8 as well. I mean, I'll hold my hands up. I had written him off last year. I thought he was a liability because he was always injured, and when he played, he went off injured. But he's proved me completely wrong, because he is an excellent, classy player. He did miss a third of the season, though, still, so that's right at the start of the season. So that's why I only went with an 8, and I just hope he can do it all again next season if he's still with us. Jack Colback up next. He's split opinion through the season. I wonder if he will again now. What have you gone for, Dave?
Yeah, I know. I found him hard to do as well. I've gone 5 for him, and that might be a bit harsh. I thought the start of the season he was quite poor. At the start, he picked up far too many bookings and some silly red cards. But he's finished the season well. He's really rotated well with Field and Hayden, and done well when we needed him the last couple of months. But yeah, I've gone with 5 for him.
Yeah, I went with a 6, and I nearly gave him a 5 because I'm not his biggest fan either, but I acknowledge we tended to be a better team when he was in it. But I found in the first half of the season, he let us down too many times when he was supposed to be, a culture warrior or something like that he was called when he was joining. He had his fitness issues throughout the season too, but his pass accuracy was top of the squad. So I went with a 6. What about you, George?
No, I went for a 6 as well, and I think that he could have easily been a 7, because at points he did show the quality. But I think with the amount of yellow cards he picked up, like he comes on the pitch and you just know he's going to get booked. And I think he's been the worst of the 3 defensive midfielders. I think Hayden and Field have outshone him. And I think at the start of the season, there was a lot of expectation when he came in. The fans got excited. And I don't think he's fully lived up to that. But who knows for next year? But I think this year he's a 6.
Yeah. So we're all in agreement, I think, with the first time on a player there. I know you went for a 5, didn't you, Dave?
Went for a 5, so I'll let you down there.
Yeah. Steve Cook up next. I wonder if we'll agree on him. I went first, and it's a 9 for me. And I know a 9 is high, but he's my player of the season. I said in the review show, when you look at his stats and the team stats when he plays, it's like chalk and cheese without him. So he's been immense. And he had no pre-season as well, was thrown in because we'd lost the first match 4-0. So even when we were struggling, he still played superbly well at the start of the season. And I can only think of about maybe 2 errors that he made all season, maybe giving the ball away. He's been superb. So it's a 9 out of 10 for me. George?
Yeah, no, 9 out of 10 for me as well. When he's always given that team a good solid foundation. Like, obviously, he's not the quickest centre-back in the world, but his IQ makes up for it. No matter what club he's been at, he's always brought that control at the back. And I think you are rightfully said he got thrown into a squad. And when I spoke to him, because I had the thing of interviewing him, he knew what he wanted to do at the club. He knows the steps that we want to take. So I think he should be club captain next year. And I think 9 out of 10 is fair.
Dave?
Yeah, full house. I've gone 9 as well. Got the same. Just been a really good signing. You know, on and off the pitch, you can see he's a real leader. I do think back to what would have happened if we had signed him when Mark Warburton was manager and we went with Sanderson instead, and he ended up promoted with Forest. Could we have maybe gone up that year or gone a lot closer? Who knows? But, you know, you can just see why he's had such a good career at Bournemouth and that. He's just such a good leader and he makes us a much better team. You know, he obviously hasn't got much pace, so we have to defend a little bit deeper with him, but he's been really good this season.
Yeah, he's been outstanding. I don't think there's a single QPR fan who wouldn't agree with that. Elijah Dixon-Bonner's up next. George?
I've gone for a 6 on this one. I think it's hard to judge because most of his appearances have been from the bench, but the little showings he's made from the start and even off the bench, he's looked good. A couple of the passes he's made, other people haven't seen. I think especially against Coventry, he did really well. So I think a 6 is a good reflection of where he's at now, but I think he's certainly a good prospect for the future. And if he can sign that contract, he'll certainly be a good squad player for next year.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I went 6 as well. I quite like him when he has played. He's looked decent. He's good on the ball. You know, he reads the game well. I like him. He's probably a bit unfortunate not to play more. I think it comes to a point in the season when he had to go with the more experienced heads and play Hayden and Field or Colback rather than Dixon-Bonner. But he did really well at Coventry, I thought. And when called upon, he's done well. He's definitely one to look out for. I'd certainly be keeping hold of him.
Yeah, I don't think he ever did much wrong. I went with the 6 as well because he looks a great prospect. He's always looking for the ball and keen to move the ball on. He moves around. So yeah, he got a 6, but it actually didn't feel like he made 26 appearances, did it? Which he did. Felt like it was less than that. Next up, he's not been with us for the second half of the season, but Andre Dazelle. Dave?
So I went with a 4 for him. Probably should give him a 10 because him going meant maybe we could buy Anderson and Hayden. But not the best, is he? I mean, he just disappears too often through games, you know, and you could see quite early Cifuentes was not having him, that, you know, he would just go safety first, pass back to the centre halves all the time when he got the ball, rather than going on the turn and being brave and passing out. And he's probably been found out a bit at Birmingham as well doing that. He's not even played recently for him. Not the best. You know, thought he could do quite well when we first signed him a couple of years ago, but been a big disappointment and one I doubt he'll be around next season.
Yeah, I went with a 3. I mean, he just never does enough to influence games, like you said. I mean, I think on this podcast 2 years ago, we were saying we hope he improves, and he just never did. He had obviously had that sending off at Leicester, which really let Gareth Ainsworth down in his final game in charge when we were level in the game. So yeah, I went with a 3. George, your thoughts on Dazelle?
Well, no, I've had to give him a 5 because I don't think he's been worse than Adomah. But no, I think he's just a boring player. I think like he doesn't do much. I don't see what he gives you going forward, going in defence. Like I just don't see it. And obviously he had that goal against Middlesbrough. But apart from that, he's always been a sort of player where you say, I hope he gets better. I hope he improves. But I think it just went on for too long, and I think him going out on loan certainly changed our season around with the finances it cleared up. So I think a 5 is potentially a bit optimistic. He could have easily been a 4, but with Adomah being a 5, I think it'd be too harsh on a lad.
I'm starting to wonder whether we're harsh or you're generous, George, to be honest.
I think we're harsh.
I'm just an optimistic fella at the moment.
Yeah, the club's changed, hasn't it? Jimmy Dunn's up next, and I went with a 7. I think the first half of the season, he maybe even been a 4. He was well off the pace and didn't look comfortable at all. But the second half of the season, especially at right back, probably an 8 or a 9. So I went with a 7. Obviously playing in a new position as well. He was outstanding, wasn't he? What did you think, Dave?
Yeah, I've gone 7 as well. Like you, when he come back from injury, I thought he was really poor when he first come back, and you're like, oh, there was talk of him leaving in January, and I wasn't that disappointed if he had gone in January. But when I remember going to Bristol City and seeing he was right back and thinking, well, what are we doing? We've given up now. We're playing him right back. And from that game on, he's been absolutely brilliant. He's made that position his own. He obviously scored that goal against Birmingham, which was incredible, and has probably been the moment that turned it for us. He's done really well, and he's just been so good in that position. And I hope he can build on it next year.
Yeah, I don't think 12 months ago we'd have been thinking we only want Jimmy Dunn to stay because we need him as our right back. What did you give him, George?
Now, this was probably the hardest one for me, and I've gone for a 7 here. And I agree with you. We could have easily been an 8 or 9 at right back, or a 4 or 5 at centre back. I think you saw him at Millwall away. He was absolutely dire. Him and Kakai on that right, they just couldn't seem to pass the ball. And I always thought he did better in a back 3, at right of a 3. There's less pressure on him. So I don't think even God himself could have called Jimmy Dunn to be a right back, but Marty somehow did. So no, I definitely think he's improved as the season's gone on, and I think a 7 out of 10 is a fair reflection over the whole course of the season.
Yeah, definitely. Finishing part 1, probably one of the most divisive players in the squad for fan opinion. That's Lyndon Dykes. George, you're up first.
Well, potentially a controversial one. I've gone for a 7 on this one. I think that at points he pins the defenders back well, and he certainly shows that energy and he puts in the effort. I don't get fans who say that he just walks around and that he's lazy. I think the last few games especially he's done really well. I think 6 goals this season's poor. It's 6 goals in the league, that is. I think, is that his worst scoring tally for us? It's just, we know he's not going to be a goal scorer, and that's why I was so disappointed going into the season as him as our pinnacle striker. So I think that he's improved as the season has gone on, especially near the tail end of the season. So I think a 7. People will probably disagree. People probably think he's a 4 or 5, but I don't mind Lyndon Dykes as much as other people.
Yeah, well, I think you've definitely confirmed it's generous, George, now at this stage. I only went with a 5. I know he finished the season well, but he's our number 9. And we know he's not a goal scorer, but 6 league goals and no away goals for what is it now, 18 months or something like that. Come on. And I think because he's finished the season well, people may be going to be looking at it a little bit different way, but there's been so many matches this season where, and we've discussed it on the preview shows, haven't we, Dave? Like, you're literally thinking, what is he doing? What did he contribute in this game? He looked like he'd never played the game before. So we have to remember that as well. So that's why I've gone for a 5. And I think, like I said in the review show, for me, I think it's time for a fresh start all round. What did you give him, Dave?
Yeah, I went 6. I agree with you. He needs to add more goals to his game. It's an obvious thing to say, really, isn't it? But he did finish the season well for all his faults throughout the season. That was a big goal against Preston. It was gifted to him, but he did put it away, and then he scored again against Leeds, and thought he did well at Coventry. He has turned up in the last few games. In Plymouth as well, I thought he played quite well. So I'll go with a 6 for him. He can do and he needs to do a lot better. It's a poor return goals wise from him this year. You can't, I've said before, you can't have him as your main goal scoring threat as a forward. It's madness to go into a season doing that. And, that's on the club. That's not Dykes' fault that we made him our main striker again this year. We should have been looking to bring someone else in, and we didn't. And we can't do that again next year. It's probably a good time for him to move on if he has a good Euros and maybe start again somewhere else. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's still here next year.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see actually whether he does go or whether he stays, and whether he's used differently next season or whether he's only off the bench, etc. And Lyndon Dykes is the last player for part 1. We hope you enjoyed it, and you'll come back for the part 2 to see if we are still being harsh, if George is still being generous with the remaining players, and we'll be rating the managers too, so that should be interesting. So make sure you join us for that. Thank you for watching, and come on, you R's.
We know who we are. You know who we are. We are QPR.